Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. I already messed up.
Already, we're off to a strong start.
Thanks for tuning. Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion to make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, a certified personal trainer, and health coach. Please remember, everything we discuss on the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Always seek the guidance of your medical professional. Have you heard that spiel before?
I've heard that spiel plenty of times. So Phil and I used to do the radio show together. So we are good friends. We actually met at the gym years ago. And he's become a good buddy of mine. And so he invited me on the show today to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart that I think is super important because I have been living with a debilitating chronic health condition for the past 2 years now. I'm doing a little bit better. I'll talk about that later, but largely caused by an unintentional vitamin overdose, vitamin B6 toxicity, which I know that sounds like a bunch of craziness to you right now, but hopefully by the end of our show today, I will have convinced you that it is valid and it is real. I unfortunately, I think, learned the hard way that more is not always optimal. So I'm here today to retract any previous recommendations that we had given on the radio show about supplementing with all of these vitamins, and I want to offer a warning to people, especially people here in my hometown. I'm actually I'm not from Leicester, but I've lived in Leicester for like 6 years now. So it's cool to do something local to kind of raise a little bit of awareness and talk about my situation. So I was actually excited because 2 weeks ago, I saw a news story on NBC News, and that's like a major news platform. And it was the first story that I've seen in the U.S. in this country talking about the dangers of vitamin B6 toxicity. I think in the past decade or so, we've seen this huge surge in popularity of various health products. So things like supplements and electrolyte powders and energy drinks and fortified snacks, protein powders, pre-workout formulas, all of this stuff. And it's marketed to people who are genuinely just trying to optimize their health and maximize their athletic performance. And we think, oh, like, why not? Why wouldn't I want to be a healthier person? Why wouldn't I want to be able to lift a little bit better in the gym, right? We turn on the TV or we scroll through social media and you're bombarded with all of these advertisements for green juices and mushroom coffee and gut cleanses and detox teas and all of that stuff. And, these products are marketed as healthy, and we're just kind of driving the narrative that more is always better. And that if we want to be healthy, we have to buy all of these expensive supplements and products. But the truth is, and what I learned, is that too much can be just as dangerous as not enough. So we have a lot more to lose than just money, because all these things are really expensive too. So most of these products are actually, they contain a crazy amount of vitamin B6. They contain a lot of other weird stuff too, don't get me wrong, but vitamin B6, so people end up consuming way too much vitamin B6 without even realizing it. And ironically, they think that they're doing the right thing. They think, oh, I'm taking all these things and I'm going to be so much healthier. But, contrary to popular belief, even the belief of most doctors, most PCPs think, oh, you just pee out anything that you don't need and it's fine. Like, you excrete it, you get rid of it. But that's not true. And so what happens with vitamin B6 toxicity is, even though it's a water-soluble vitamin, if we're consuming this over a long period of time, our kidneys can no longer work effectively to excrete it and get it out of our body, and it actually builds up in your muscle and in your nerve tissue, and it causes neuropathy and autonomic dysfunction.
A couple of things, Kate, you brought up on the show that I just wanted to interject.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is the B6 in supplements and also in food is synthetic. It's synthetically formed.
Yes.
So what happens is your body's used to, and I think everybody agrees, if you can get your supplements from food, that's the best way of getting
100%.
it. Because what happens is, it's a little technical, but it's called chelated. It's bound to something. So it gets released slowly, and your body's used to it. There's a lot of vitamin B6 in meat and things like that, but the meat is bound to other things, and it's a slow release.
Right.
So with the B6 you're taking, the synthetic form, it goes right into you, and I think that's one of the big problems. The other thing I don't think we talked about on the show is everybody has a different genetic makeup.
Right.
So there's something called methylation, how well your body can use it. Some people, they call over-methylators, some people are under-methylators. So if you happen to be an over-methylator, and so the same amount of vitamin B6 for me could be, like, for you could be toxic, right?
I mean, it also depends on what does your kidney function look like? What does your liver function look like? If you have any sort of other condition, so for me, I had a pre-existing autoimmune condition. I have Hashimoto's. So my liver already naturally is just a little sluggish, right? So it has a harder time getting rid of all of this excess stuff and converting synthetic vitamins to the bioavailable form that we need. So yeah, it's important because you never know, like, if you are that person until something bad happens to you. So the other interesting thing is, unfortunately, I think in America we're doing a really bad job at regulating our supplements. So if we look at Australia actually just a few months ago in November, they took action and they tightened the restrictions on all of their B6 supplements. So now if you can't buy any sort of B complex or B6 supplement from a drugstore in Australia over the counter. You actually need a doctor's prescription to get this stuff, to get the same stuff that's readily available on every shelf in our local CVS. In Europe, too, the maximum has always been like a tenth of what it is in America. The max that you can put in a supplement in Europe is 12 milligrams. In America, it's 100 milligrams, 100 milligrams. That's 5,000 times the amount of B6 that you need daily. So, if we're talking about numbers now, so on average, a person needs anywhere between 1.3 to 1.7 milligrams of B6. And we're putting 100 milligrams of this synthetic vitamin in everything. And so no wonder why our body can't process 5,000 times the amount of vitamin that we need.
Let me just interject something.
Yeah.
It occurred to me when you mentioned that. So my wife, when she was seeing her primary care doctor, everybody, I think most people know vitamin D is really, really important.
Right.
So vitamin B,
Yeah.
vitamin D. So for whatever reasons, they decided to put my wife on a relatively high dose of vitamin D. And a lot of people, you can actually have vitamin D toxicity too.
Yeah, it's a fat-soluble vitamin.
Yeah, it's a fat-soluble. So it's even though people take it. So again, my wife is what's called an over-methylator. In other words, you can give her a little bit of vitamin D and she just goes crazy with it.
Yep.
Absorbed, everything's wonderful. Some people are like a vitamin B12. Some people do not methylate vitamin B12, so they have to give them vitamin B12 shots,
right,
injections to see what's going on with it. So what happened, so the doctor told her to take so many IUs of vitamin D, and she was almost vitamin D toxic.
Yeah, and it's really easy to be vitamin D toxic too. So, this is a bigger conversation. It's not just B6, it's anything. There's no need for us to be taking excessive amounts of any vitamin unless we have a known deficiency that was shown in blood work.
Why don't you explain to the audience the difference between water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins?
Well, this is hard now because I know now what I know about water-soluble vitamins is different from what I used to think. So, the belief is that with fat-soluble vitamins, this stuff gets stored in our tissue. It's not excreted out through our urine. But like B6 is this weird anomaly now where we're realizing like sometimes it's not excreted properly through our urine. It's actually getting deposited in our tissues if we're taking way too much of it, which in my case, and I think in a lot of people's case, and they don't realize it, they are.
I think the other thing, Kate, you brought up was a good point. It also depends on how well your organs are operating, how your kidneys are operating, how your liver's operating. So if you have a compromised kidneys, the best thing for that is called GFR, glomerular filtration rate. There's a regular test they normally do. How well are your kidneys filtering out things? If it's not filtering out well, you're not even going to be able to excrete.
But these are tests that people don't do in their day-to-day, right? So like better safe than sorry. Like rather than go figure out how well your kidneys are functioning, just avoid things with crazy amounts of synthetic vitamins.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? So I mean, I'm here today to kind of share my story and get really humble with everybody. I truly thought that I was living a healthy lifestyle by taking supplements, and I had no idea that I was poisoning myself. So looking back, my symptoms started probably like 6 years ago. I've been dealing with mild symptoms, and it all started with anxiety and vertigo episodes. So every couple months I would get these debilitating vertigo episodes, and I'm not talking like, oh, I'm just a little dizzy. I'm talking like full 360 spinning, 48 hours, throwing up all over myself, couldn't stand up, bad vertigo. But I just kept, like I always do, pushing forward, like, oh, that's weird, I just get dizzy sometimes, no big deal, no big deal. Then my limbs started falling asleep all the time, and then I started to notice random tachycardia episodes that were happening, just kind of out of nowhere. And then one day at the gym, I had my first pre-syncope episode. And for those that don't know what pre-syncope means, it basically just means you feel like you're about to pass out, but you don't actually go unconscious. So that really scared me, and that pushed me to see my PCP and did a couple tests and blood work, and I was just told, oh, it's just anxiety, and was sent on my way. It's just anxiety, you're just anxious, just gotta calm down. The tachycardia started to get worse. The dizziness became pretty much constant at that point, 24/7 dizziness. I couldn't really tolerate exercise anymore. So that really pushed me to see a cardiologist and try to figure out what was going on. And that's when I got diagnosed with POTS, which stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So POTS is just one type of dysautonomia. It's a big word, fancy word. And that's just an umbrella term that means any condition that involves some sort of dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. So with POTS, what happens is essentially like a blood circulation problem. So in a normal functioning human being, when you stand up, your body pumps the blood back up to your head and to your heart. When you have POTS, your nervous system doesn't regulate blood flow properly, so when you stand up, blood just pools in the lower half of your body, and it doesn't get kicked back up to your head and your heart. So if you think about it, if you don't have any blood in your brain, that's going to cause a myriad of symptoms like tachycardia, dizziness, fatigue, brain fog, nausea, tinnitus. I used to lose my hearing all the time. Vision loss. My vision was pretty horrific for a long period of time. And then exercise intolerance, which was honestly one of the worst symptoms for me because you and I are gym rats. Yeah, we're gym rats. So that was like really tough. Those are the worst symptoms for me. Unfortunately, POTS is a condition that hasn't been really well researched, and it can be caused by a lot of different things, not just vitamin B6 toxicity. So when we think about POTS, it can be caused by any sort of illness or infection. We see a lot of POTS coming from long COVID patients. Right. It can be caused by a major shift in hormones. So actually, it's 91% a female problem. So wow. Isn't that a wild number? Yeah, so now we're really looking at the research to see how much of this might be like hormonally driven, because we see people coming out of pregnancy that end up getting smashed with POTS, or young girls in puberty that end up temporarily getting POTS.
I'm going to do some research on this.
Yeah,
I'm wondering about
interesting.
it's going to be an estrogen component to it.
Yeah, so I've actually been on estrogen therapy, bioidentical estrogen replacement for a couple months now, and it's helped my symptoms a lot. So POTS is just, I'm also here to kind of raise awareness about POTS because it's an invisible illness, and that is it's very frustrating to live with a condition that people can't see. Because on the outside, I look totally fine, right? Like, oh, you look so good, or you're too young to be sick, or, I get those comments all the time. And while I know, like, they're well-intentioned, it's just super frustrating because it's been years now where I feel like I have to prove that I'm sick because people can't see dizziness, right? They can't see vision loss or tinnitus or tachycardia. They can't see any of that stuff.
We should go into a T-shirt business. I'm sick and have it on.
Well, I mean,
ask me about my illness.
Ask me about my chronic illness. I mean, I also don't want to have that be my whole identity either, though. And so it's been a wild ride because for a while it really felt like it was my whole identity, and it felt like I was kept trying to prove, I was trying to prove to my doctors that I was sick because unfortunately, this is a staggering number too. To get a POTS diagnosis, the average is 3 years. Because people continue to go to their doctor, cardiologist, neurology, and say, hey, I have all these symptoms. And the answer most of the time is, you're just anxious. You just need more rest. You need to exercise more. It's just stress. And I'm sorry, but that's baloney. That's just not true. There's a lot of misunderstandings around POTS.
Is there any kind of an actual test to give a definitive diagnosis on this?
Yes. So here's the worst part. So you can luckily, I saw a cardiologist that I walked into his office, I said, I'm dizzy, I have tachycardia, and he didn't do any tests on me, and he said, you have POTS. And I was like, what do you mean? How do you even know that? Because it's becoming so prevalent. All these females are coming out with POTS. But in order to get officially diagnosed, which I was, and it took almost a year and a half, you have to get autonomic testing done. So I had my autonomic testing done at Brigham and Women's. It took over a year to get that appointment, because now they're scheduling out 2 or 3 years, if you can even get a referral, if you can even get someone to believe you. It's an awful experience. It's a tilt table test. You usually pass out during the exam.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's bad. So yeah, it's not fun, but it's really hard for people to get diagnosed with POTS. So back to vitamin B6.
Quickly.
Yes.
Is there any type of medication for POTS?
Yes. There's a lot of medications, but not medications that directly are treating the underlying cause. So really what you need to do is figure out what's causing your POTS, because POTS is a syndrome, right? It's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So it's always caused by something. You don't just wake up one day totally healthy and all of a sudden you have POTS. Something underlying is causing your nervous system to malfunction. So for me, it was vitamin B6 toxicity, but that might look different for everybody. So you have to figure out what's the driver and try to work to resolve what's going on so that your POTS symptoms improve. In the interim, there are medications for heart rate, there's a beta blocker, which for me never worked because I was an athlete, so my heart rate was already really low. So they put me on a beta blocker and my heart rate dropped down to 30 beats per minute. I was like, oh no. But for some people it works. I found a blood pressure medication to be really helpful because my blood pressure was incredibly low at this time. There's also steroids.
You were taking salt, weren't you, too?
Yes.
You said salt
so
was helpful.
They'll always start with non-medication. So salt is now my best friend. It keeps my blood pressure up. It keeps the blood in my veins. Also compression. So if you'll notice, every time you see me, I'm wearing from the waist down pretty much full body compression to help pump the blood back up to my head. So those are more, if we're not talking medication, those are some of the more.
The other thing I wanted to mention for the audience, and you mentioned this on the radio show, is vitamin B is heavily involved in your nervous system.
Yes.
So a lot of times, you had mentioned sometimes if you could even have the vitamin B6 toxicity, they may give you more vitamin B6 because they think it's because they treat vitamin B for both for your nervous system not working correctly, underactivated and overactivated. So that's where it gets confusing, right?
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. So the symptoms are identical, deficiency and toxicity. So people go to their doctor and they say, oh, I'm having these weird shocks and zaps and nerve pain and muscle cramping, or I'm wicked dizzy. And they leave with a prescription for vitamin B6 because they think, oh, you must be deficient. So never having done a blood test. So that's, I think, maybe my recommendation is if you feel like you have some of these symptoms and you just checked your supplement cabinet and you were like, oh my God, I'm taking all this B6, then go to your PCP and ask for it's a vitamin B6 blood test. Very easy. Just go to a lab and get it done.
But you know what, Kate? All the years I worked in the lab, I don't remember ever doing a vitamin B6 test.
It's funny because it's not a common thing that's checked, but it actually is on the list at Mass General of secondary conditions to check when someone comes and presents with a neurological condition or a nerve problem. It's actually on that.
And the main thing is, when I worked in the hospital, is call it rule out. Find out what it's not. So the only way you can do that is with blood tests.
Yes.
And again, sometimes you have to be the CEO of your own health, where you have to advocate for yourself.
I did a lot of ruling out. I've ruled out everything. At one point, I was convinced that I was mold toxic, and I spent over 20 grand remediating my entire house that didn't have any mold in it. Because when you're sick, you're desperate, and you will quite literally do anything, and I just wanted my life back. And it took a long time for me to figure it out, and I was the one that figured it out. I wasn't a doctor. I went to my neurologist at Brigham and Women's, and I was like, hey, I think I might have B6 toxicity. And she's like, okay, let's do a blood test.
But
sure enough.
Other thing, Kate's my favorite citizen scientist. We have a lot of discussions at the gym all the time. We don't always agree.
We don't.
But that's fine.
We definitely don't.
That's fine. But we throw things around. Kate's very open-minded about it, and she'll look. She said, well, what do you think about this? And I'll ask Kate, what do you think about this, Kate? So we go back and forth. So you don't have to have a degree in biochemistry. It's helpful. I know somebody that has a degree in biochem, but if you just do your own research and know a few people, because I know you give a lot of advice to people at the gym. What about this? What about that? So again, you don't have to be a scientist to do this stuff. Kate's
No, I'm certainly not a scientist.
She actually figured it out herself.
I did. So, I mean, I would like to, we only have limited time. I really want to tell people, what are the signs? What should we look for? What products is vitamin B6 in? Because I don't think there is a whole lot of awareness about it. So, thinking about what some big takeaways here. So, some of the first symptoms that you should be mindful of, if you have any sort of numbness or tingling in your fingers or your toes, limbs falling asleep, loss of sensation of heat or cold, any sort of nerve pain, dizziness, feeling really imbalanced, vision changes, really low blood pressure, tachycardia, fatigue, even heartburn and nausea. And histamine issues as well. There was a period of time where I was getting random rashes. And I know that's a lot, it's a lot of symptoms, but check, please, read every single label of everything that you put into your body. It's not just, so yes, of course, B6 is going to be in multivitamins, right? Which honestly, at this point, I wouldn't even recommend people take a multivitamin because there's just too much of stuff that we don't need in them. B vitamin complexes, and that's what got me sick. I was taking a B vitamin complex that had 100 milligrams of B6 in it. If you're taking a magnesium, it's actually often added or hidden in that magnesium supplement because for some reason companies marketed as it makes the magnesium more effective or more bioavailable. And that's not true.
I don't know. It may be. Maybe a coenzyme. I don't know.
It's not.
Okay.
It's really not. Prenatal vitamins. Unfortunately, a lot of pregnant people deal with B6 toxicity. Energy drinks. This is a huge one. So I'm actually a middle school guidance counselor, and I watch my 12-year-old, 13-year-old students walking around all day, drinking, smashing back Celsius and Red Bull and Monster. All these energy drinks all have vitamin B6 in them. I've talked to hundreds of people across the country and even around the world, because there are a lot of online communities now for vitamin B6 toxicity, who became toxic off of energy drinks alone.
Didn't you kind of find this out at that vitamin B6 toxicity group that you ran across?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I started Googling my symptoms, and then I started talking to a bunch of people that were dealing with the same stuff.
So there's a whole group that actually dealing with this
online community,
and that's really good for any kind of a disease like that. It's not really it's a toxicity, but it's kind of an orphan. Not too many people know about it.
Yeah.
So it's good to be another group.
A lot of doctors don't know about it.
Yeah.
A lot of doctors don't know about it. Electrolyte powders, those are big right now. Liquid IV, people chugging a liquid IV, that has a ton of vitamin B6 in it. And even cereals, any cereal you buy off the shelf at a supermarket has added B6 in it. And I'm not saying any one of these things is gonna like throw your health into crazy dysfunction, but people are consuming multiple sources of all these different products.
And there's a lot of vitamin
realizing-
B in B6 in meat. So if you eat a lot of meat, that's something else.
Yeah, so I was eating a strict paleo diet for like 10 years, and my diet was already crazy high in B6. So in order to detox from B6, I actually had to follow a low B6 diet for a little while, which was absolutely miserable. I was living off of like goat meat and egg whites. It was awful. So please read your labels, and it's not always going to say vitamin B6 on it. It can say pyridoxine HCl, pyridoxal, P5P. Sometimes is how it will look on a label. But a good rule of thumb is if something is marketed as a health product or something is marketed that's going to give you energy or make you feel good, it probably has added B6 in it. And we get plenty of B6 in our diet, like what you were just saying, right? So you don't need all these crazy supplements. So vitamin B6 rich foods include, chicken, tuna, bananas, avocados, spinach, pistachios are a great source of B6 too. So you don't need all this stuff. You just don't need it.
Yeah, we talked before. The main thing is try to get it from your food. That's really the best,
For sure.
the best way of getting it. But just like anything else, we talked before. There's a genetic component to this too. Everybody's a little bit differently. How you absorb things and everything else. Mm-hmm. You had mentioned too your kidney health, your liver health, and all those other types play into it, because everybody's unique genetically, and what they eat, and a bunch of other things involved in it too. So
I mean, at this point I've talked to so many people who have had vitamin B6 toxicity, and I will say it affects everyone. I've spoken to people my age, I've spoken to bodybuilders in their 20s, men, like strong dudes that get totally incapacitated from this. So it's just something that I think needs to be brought to light, and people need to be aware of all of those synthetic vitamins that they're consuming and what it could possibly do.
Well, the other thing we haven't talked about, a lot of supplements are made in China and India. They have no quality control.
Well, yeah, that's a problem.
So
too.
then you don't even know what's in there to begin with. So that's the other problem.
Right.
So if you're looking for supplements, you may want to email me, philgeorge@charter.net, because I do curate these things and make sure.
Yeah, we want to make sure things are third-party tested and all that good stuff, but.
Yeah. So the other thing is again with the with the vitamins. Email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I have trusted sources, and they make sure what's in there is supposed to be in there. A good example is creatine. Mm-hmm. Most creatine is made in China, so you're going to be really careful where you get your creatine from, because again you have no idea of what's in there. So we're coming up towards 30 seconds left. We're coming up. So Kate and I are going to be back for segment 2, and we're going to be talking about the food pyramid.
Food pyramid.
Before we go off, what I want to mention is if you have any questions for Kate, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I got Kate on speed dial, so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to anybody that thinks they're going through this or has any kind of follow-up questions.
Yeah, about any. So,
Yeah.
and Kate, again, is a wealth of information. So thanks for tuning in, guys. The next show, we're going to be doing the food pyramid, the upside-down food pyramid. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net for a free consult.